Good afternoon, microfollowers. I wanted to address meat rabbits today because I'm supposing that because of the current events that there are a lot of people out there that are wanting to start meat rabbits. And a lot of the groups that I admin on Facebook, people are asking questions about how to go about getting started with their meat rabbit operation. So I wanted to address that because I remember when I was first considering it, first of all, I couldn't get over the initial shock that people were actually purposely breeding rabbits for food. Because when I was growing up, my dad and my grandfather and my uncles, they all went hunting, so it was a wild thing. It wasn't something that we had, in the backyard. So that was really weird for me. But if you're considering starting your own meat rabbit operation, I want to cover a few topics that might help you out and lessen the stress of the starting the process. So we're going to start with what kind of rabbits do I get? It's usually one of the first questions that people ask, and here is the very plain and simple answer to that: the kind you eat. Okay, so unless you plan on doing some kind of, super high tech on paper keeping records, register kind of thing, rabbits, you know what I mean? You obviously don't want to go with anything that's small. You want to go with something, a larger breed that has meat on its bones. I was kind of tossing between New Zealand and Californian when I was getting ready to start, and I just decided to have a male New Zealand and a female Californian, and I bred those two together, and that's what I've been doing since because it works. Now there are other breeds that are known for a lot more breeding frequently and easier to breed, like Rexes, but they're significantly smaller. So even though they breed more often, I think that may not be an absolute fact, but my experience with them was they were so easy to breed and they were so ready to breed after kindling. The thing is they were significantly smaller than what I was used to with the Californian and New Zealand mix. So the answer to what kind of rabbit should you start with if you're going to start with meat rabbits, the answer is the kind you eat. Just start with some rabbits. Don't get, the pretty show rabbits and that sort of thing. Obviously, get yourself a good, a large breed. And contrary to popular belief, Flemish Giants are not always the best. Flemish Giants, yes, they are large breeds, but they have a bigger bone to meat ratio. So it's not like you're getting that much meat with that size of a rabbit. They have a very large frame. So take that kind of stuff into consideration, but don't overthink it. Let's see. So the next question I have is what kind of cage do I get, or which can also be combined with cages versus colonies. So, okay. When I first started, I was like, I want them to be in their natural habitat. I want them to be as happy as they could possibly be, because happy rabbits means more breeding, and more breeding is more success in the rabbit stuff. And I'm going to tell you, when I started looking into the colony thing and all of the problems that people deal with the colonies, with them being up against the ground, you're talking about parasites, you're talking about insects, and just an escape. You know what I mean? It's like rabbits are the goats of the ground. So keeping a rabbit confined in a colony is not impossible. I'm just saying, I wasn't really all about signing up for all that kind of fun. I was not going there. So what kind of cage do you get? If you're going to go with cages, hanging cages or stand cages, it doesn't matter. It's whatever's convenient for you. The rabbit is not going to be like, dude, I can't believe she put me in here. Okay, whether you're going with cages, hanging cages, stand cages, or colony, your rabbit is not going to judge you for it, because it's kind of like saying that you don't like pizza when you've never had pizza. Okay, your rabbit's not going to know that there could possibly be 10 more square feet for them to run around out there versus where they're at. Okay, so don't overthink it. Your standard cages, granted you have the right kind of shelter. Sorry, I'm dealing with some serious winter allergies, so you have to overlook that part. I apologize. Your standard cages that you can purchase from Tractor Supply, even Walmart, whatever. I personally try to go with I think it's 24 by 24. for one rabbit. Don't be trying to cram a whole bunch of rabbits in one living space. I do have a maternity hutch, and it is I don't remember if it's a 5 foot or 6 foot, but is either a 5 or a 6x4. So it's a very large hutch, and it is for the mom and her kids, period. The grow outs, that's all. So the biggest thing to think about with your cages is not overpopulating your cages. It isn't necessarily what kind of cage. Now, I can tell you that like your basic already set up guinea pig habitat crap that you can get for Walmart, that's not, don't go there. You need just like a legit serious cage, okay? Tractor Supply and Rural King is where I order mine from. Brick. So then water bottles and feeders, okay? Water bottles are water bottles. You can spend $1 million on a water bottle and your rabbit is not going to care versus the $5 or $6 water bottle. It really does not matter. The only thing that actually matters when it comes to getting a water bottle for your rabbit is making sure that it's big enough for your rabbit. So the way that I gauge it, I don't know how anybody else gauges it, but if that water bottle is empty before the end of the day, then that water bottle is not enough. So, I mean, it's just, that's simple for me. Same way with the feeders. You do have some rabbits that are kind of a pain in the butt and they will dig food out of their food dishes. Gravity feeders, personal opinion, gravity feeders are the best. They're the ones you can hang them on the inside of the cage or you can hang them on the outside of the cage. Either way, I have a very few situations where I will use an actual cup feeder for my rabbits. Not often. So, feeders and water bottles, like I said, gravity feeders are the best to go with. Water bottles, just kind of gauge it. If they still act thirsty when you bring their next water bottle, then your water bottle is not big enough. What kind of food? Okay, this kind of goes back to the original, what kind of rabbit do I start with? Because if you are simply in this for meat, period, you're not showing no rabbits, you're not keeping records of bloodlines and that sort of thing, if you're not going to overthink this off the side of the earth, then honestly, just get them a good pellet food just not based on alfalfa is very fattening for rabbits, and Timothy is generally pretty fattening too, and only in good for like when they're kindling. So if you have a pregnant doe or something like that, a steady feed of Timothy hay would be good. Otherwise, just regular clover hay and regular pellet feed. When I first started out, I was getting my pellets from Walmart. I think I paid $8 whole for a 30 or 40 pound bag. I was just going with whatever was cheapest. Okay, I picked branches from my apple trees, no seeds of course, and fed those to my rabbits. I made sure they got their dandelions. They got greens. But for the most part, they literally just had basic clover hay and pellets from Walmart. And I can honestly sit here and tell you today, 4 years later, that the rabbits that I processed taste no different than the ones that I processed 4 years ago. Today, I get my feed from Tractor Supply and I use Mana Pro. Pretty much because when I first started out, I had 2 rabbits and now I have many more. So I'm kind of more so in the market for a deal, you know what I mean, a bulk deal. So I think my bag is 50-pound bag. I pay $16, I think it is, 16 or 18 bucks for a bag of rabbit food. So as far as rabbit food goes, don't do the whole carrots and lettuce and, yes, they do like that, but in moderation, because rabbits can become diabetic. I mean, just being real about it. So you can kill your rabbit by giving them healthy foods. Pellets and hay and water. That's all they need. That's literally all they need to survive. In the wintertime, I will put a little bit of cracked corn in the whole rabbit food bag and mix it up in there. I'll put about maybe 3 cups and I mix it up in there. Corn helps with body temperature because it's fattening, so it helps with the insulation for the rabbits during the winter months. Again, not necessary. Don't go like giving your rabbit like whole ears of corn or anything. Not good for them. So you have your basic clover hay and your pellets and water diet. That is it. You don't have to overthink that one either. So next on the list, I've got what kind of shelter. Okay, so we talked about the rabbit cages versus the colonies, okay? The colony setup, you're going to need something that they can't dig out the bottom, which means not only are you going to have to put a fence around the outside, you're going to have to put a fence on the underneath too. So you're going to have to actually bury fencing, then have a fencing around the outside, and then some kind of fencing over the top that, you know, predators can't get into. And like I said, to me, it was just like, no. Cages need to be sheltered, okay? So the cages themselves are good, but you have to make sure that your rabbits are sheltered from all of the elements. They can't have a bad draft. A little bit of breeze in the summertime is good. Rabbits are way more tolerant to the wintertime than they are the summertime. So, okay, a little bit of draft in the summertime is fine, but general rule of thumb, no rain, no wind, no snow, no direct sunlight. So even though you have your rabbits in these cages, you want to make sure that they're not in direct sunlight, which means they're going to have they need some kind of roof. They're going to need some kind of walls, something that's going to stop the wind, the rain, the snow, etc., etc. My example right now is really bad considering that 75-mile-an-hour winds just took off the roof of my enclosure. But generally speaking, some kind of ventilated shed is fine. The garage is fine. If you choose to have them in your house, that's fine. They stink, but that's fine too. Just make sure that they have some kind of shelter away from the elements, and they'll be fine. Let's see. Last but not least, breeding. As I mentioned earlier, like my experience with the Rexes, they had big litter counts, and they were ready to breed. Like the minute that they kindled, they were ready to breed. And they were so easy to breed compared to, you know, waiting until your Californian or your New Zealand is old enough. You could go clear up to anywhere between 8 and 12 months old before they're ready to breed. And then you can have one like Karen, who is just like drama llama. But anyways, the Rexes, if you want like a fast rotation to where you're go, Rexes are absolutely amazing. And mutts, just mutts are so perfect. Like I said, if you're not getting into paperwork and all that kind of good junk, mutts, that's all you need. Just breed some rabbit mutts, because you're in this for meat. You're not in this for show. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, let's just say that you have a New Zealand Cali mix, and okay, here's a perfect example. My widow. All right, when she first started out, she's in New Zealand, and when she first started out, she was like so excellent at breeding, at kindling, at being a mom. Just everything about her was so perfect, and that's the reason why I chose her to be my main breeding doe. Now, she's getting older. I don't know how old she was when I got her, and I've had her for 4 years, so, you know, she's popping out a lot of litters. And I'm pretty sure she's close to retiring. So here's kind of what happens with this. Even if you're not doing paperwork and files and bloodlines and that sort of thing, if you end up having a doe who is hard to breed or stops taking care of her kits, or if she keeps delivering what we call on the wire to where the kits are dead, then obviously you're not going to want to continue to breed that into your bloodline, okay? So it's not that your bloodline isn't important at all. I'm just saying that as long as you're not doing any kind of registrations or showing or anything like that, it's not really important what kind of rabbits you're breeding, okay? So like the kind of rabbit that you want is the kind that you can eat. And as far as breeding, if they're breeding for you, keep them. And if they're not, don't. It literally is that simple. We'll throw in one more thing before I do a quick recap. And processing is it. Because that always seems to be that topic where everybody is totally cool with breeding rabbits for meat until it comes time to process. And I can tell you that I was one of those people. I was fairly certain that when I started with rabbits that I had this like so down to an art, because how everything started for me was I lived in the city, And I wasn't doing anything. I barely had a container garden going. And the greenhouse that I had killed everything that I had. So like I did not start out with any kind of experience outside of, I grew up on a farm. And so when I was putting this whole rabbit operation together, I had thought I was going to use that gun thing. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like this little it's like a little, I don't know what to call it. It kind of looks like a syringe maybe, but it's a hammer. So you hit this button, you put it up against the back of the rabbit's head, and you hit this button, and it gives this impact blow in the back of this, and so it's like a cervical dislocation. Same thing with where everybody's like, just grab them by the back of the feet and whack them upside the head with a 2x4. Well, I can't do that because I'm not into the barbaric farming thing. If you can do it, hats off to you, because that's traditional. That's how we all started. But for me personally, my mom raised me that your hands are made for loving and caressing and caring, and that if there's any kind of discipline or anything like that needs to be carried out, that you put something between your loving hands and that receiving end. So me personally, I can't do the broomstick method. I can't do the cervical dislocation. My gosh, like I watched so many videos on people pulling rabbits' heads off. That was traumatizing. So I wanted this to be as stressless as possible for the whole group, everybody. So personally, what I do, like I said, I started out with this little punchy thingy. Never did use it, never bought one, never did bring myself to doing that. To me, it was just putting my hands too close to that rabbit. So what I use is a high performance pellet gun, and it's a pretty good size one. So it puts me about 3 feet away from the rabbit. I have what I call a killing cage, and it's just a dog kennel, but it's a special kennel that I have reserved for them. The bottom crate is out. So when I put these rabbits into this dog kennel, they have direct access to the grass and the clover. And so they are sitting there and they're just enjoying their greens, and happy endorphins are just floating around, and it allows me to do my kill shot without feeling pressured, without the stress and the hormones going through the rabbit when processing time comes. So that's what I ended up going with, was a high pressure pellet gun my mother purchased for me for my birthday a couple years ago, and it's absolutely wonderful. I don't remember what it's called right offhand, but I can put a link down below if anybody's interested. It's wonderful. So anyhow, let's do a quick recap on things. What kind of rabbits do you get if you want to start a meat operation? You want to get the kind that you can eat. Don't get the cute little fuzzy, we raise these for wool kind of rabbits. You don't want nothing like that. You want something that's got some meat on its bones, but honestly, don't overthink it and don't pick it to death. You just want a good sized couple rabbits, that's all. What kind of cage? If you decide to go with cages over colony, like I said, just Tractor Supply. I got the black cages from Tractor Supply. That's what I started out in. And you can go, Rural King's got better ones, I think, personally. The stainless steel ones, they last longer than the black ones. They're not as flimsy. You got to put them together on your own, but it's not hard. So, and like I said, for one rabbit, I go with a 24 by 24. Cages or colonies. Look, if you want to fight and fuss with the colony part, more power to you. Like I said, you gotta bury fencing or wiring, and you have to fence around it, a nice solid structure, and then you have to cover it. And then they're trotting around in all of their poop versus being in a cage where everything can fall through the bottom grates. Don't get me wrong, you do have some downs with caged rabbits too, like sore hocks and that sort of thing, but just being proactive and weighing out your pros and cons between your cages and colonies. That's one where you do want to overthink it, the colony, seriously, because, just because. Okay, water bottles and feeders. If the water bottle is empty, by the end of the day, it's not enough water. Gravity feeders are the best thing you can possibly get. You can hang them on the inside, hang them on the outside. If you've got one of those rabbits that like to dig in their food, hanging it on the outside is a godsend. What kind of food? The kind they eat. Try to stay away from things like carrots and lettuce and traditional myths that are great for rabbits, because they're not. They actually can make your rabbit sick. including things like apples and fruits because they have natural sugars in them and you don't want to turn your rabbit into an obese diabetic. So, very simple. Clover hay, pellets. Done. And what kind of shelter? After you figure out what kind of cage works for you, if you're going with cages, make sure that whatever shelter that you have that cage in is free of drafts and the elements such as rain, sleet, snow, etc. But you do need some kind of ventilation. You don't want anything to where you don't have any kind of air circulating in there. Rabbits are prone to respiratory diseases. Breeding. Don't get discouraged. If you start your own meat rabbit operation and you put Sally in with Billy 100 times and they're just not doing what they're supposed to do, be patient. Because I remember when I first started, I was like, man, people always use that term breeding like rabbits, and they're using that real loose because I've had rabbits for 5 months and I can't get anybody to breed. Well, first of all, my rabbits were only a couple months old when I got them, so they weren't even ready to breed. Nobody explained to me that you have to wait a certain age per breed, okay? Everybody's telling me that rabbits can breed at 3 or 4 months, and they can. However, I had Californians and New Zealand's, and they're a larger breed, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So, as far as the breeding thing goes, 2 things that you need to remember. Make sure they're of age. And number 2, the female goes in with the male. Never the other way around. Unless you want a castration. So, that's pretty much the basic rundown of starting out with meat rabbits. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them down below. If you haven't subscribed or liked, please do so. I would love to have you along with me on my micro farming journey. So, any questions? Comment down below. Otherwise, stay safe, stay happy, stay warm, and I shall see you soon.